Arya Hale arrived at Fort Helion with nothing more than a small pack, a standard-issue uniform, and a quiet look that made most people assume she was shy or nervous. She stepped off the shuttle with slow breaths, trying to take in the huge metal structures, the loud sounds of alien soldiers moving in squads, and the strange mix of smells from a dozen different species living together. From the moment she entered the fort, she felt eyes on her. Many of them looked surprised. Some looked amused. The rest did not look at her at all, as if she barely existed. The registration officer, a tall, blue-skinned Varian male, scanned her chip and raised a ridge above his eye. His voice held a hint of laughter as he said she was just a fresh recruit with minimum threat potential. He stamped her file without even looking her in the eyes. Arya simply nodded. She had learned long ago that first impressions rarely showed the truth about a person. As she walked through the corridors, she heard a group of alien soldiers whisper. They spoke in a language she did not fully understand, but she caught a few words. They said humans were too soft, too emotional, too slow in real battle. Arya did not react. She just kept walking, keeping her shoulders steady and her mind focused. She knew what she was capable of. She did not need anyone else to believe in it. Her first day was simple enough. Basic training drills, weapon handling checks, and some long hours inside a simulation room watching holoscreens replay old battles. She listened to the instructors talk about enemy tactics, weak points, and survival strategies. Although she stayed quiet, her mind absorbed every detail. She moved with careful understanding, watching how other recruits held their weapons, how they stepped, how they aimed. She saw their mistakes, noted their strengths, and practiced in silence. Her bunkmate, a small insect-like credo named Lisa, tried to make conversation. She clicked her mandibles and asked Arya why she was so calm. Arya shrugged and said she was just used to new places. It was a half-truth. She was used to chaos, not comfort. But she did not want to share that part of her life. During lunch, Arya sat at the edge of the room, eating the dry ration they gave her. A group of alien fighters from the advanced units entered and made the room quieter. They were known for their strength and experience. One of them, a tall reptilian Rovak, looked at Arya with a smirk. He said he did not understand why humans kept joining the war. He said they would break in the first real fight. His friends laughed. Arya did not look away. She simply held his gaze for a moment and continued eating. The Rovak blinked, surprised by her lack of fear. Days passed, and Arya kept training with discipline. She woke before the alarms, ran longer than required, and practiced with weapons until her hands ached. The instructors noticed but did not say anything. They simply marked her progress quietly. Arya still remained mostly alone. Not by intention, but because she preferred to observe rather than speak. On the 5th day, everything changed. The fort was suddenly hit by a shockwave that shook the walls and made lights flicker. Loud alarms blared through every hall. Soldiers rushed out of their quarters shouting orders. Arya felt her heartbeat quicken, but her mind stayed clear. She grabbed her gear and followed the others. Outside, the sky lit up with bright streaks of enemy drones entering atmosphere. They dropped from the clouds like metal insects ready to kill. The defense cannons fired, but there were too many. The drones broke through and dove straight toward the fort. Explosions threw dirt and fire into the air. A squad of alien soldiers nearby panicked as several drones began firing plasma bolts at them. They scrambled for cover, but one of the drones angled toward them with deadly speed. Arya saw a soldier fall, another freeze in fear. Without thinking, she ran forward. She grabbed a dropped rifle from the ground and fired 3 quick shots. The first 2 missed. The third hit the drone's sensor, making it spin wildly. The drone redirected toward her. She rolled to the side just as it fired. Hot plasma scorched the ground where she had stood. She got up and shot again. This time she aimed for the drone's under panel. The blast tore through its power core, making it explode in a burst of metal fragments. The alien soldiers stared at her in shock. One of them, a tall gray-skinned Tarian, asked how she moved so fast. Arya simply shook her head and said it was instinct. Before they could respond, more drones descended. Arya shouted for them to regroup behind the barricade. Her voice, though calm, carried a strength that made them obey. As the drones approached, Arya studied their pattern. She noticed they always paused for half a second after firing. That pause was enough. She signaled the squad to shoot during that small window. At first they hesitated, but when they tried it, they took down 2 drones easily. The squad grew more confident. Arya continued to fight, ducking and shooting with precision. She moved like she had done this before, though she had never faced real drones in person. Every instinct in her body felt strangely sharp, as if something inside her was waking up. She did not question it. She simply acted. By the time the reinforcements arrived, the drones were mostly destroyed. The fort's officers came rushing in, checking for survivors. When they saw Arya standing with the alien squad she had saved, they were stunned. One officer asked her how she managed to survive a frontline attack on her first week. Arya only said she did what she had to. Word spread quickly across Fort Helion. The human recruit who had been labeled weak had taken down drones and saved experienced fighters. Some soldiers no longer laughed when they saw her. Others watched her closely, trying to understand who she really was. Later that night, Arya sat on her bunk with trembling hands. She did not show fear during the battle, but now, in the quiet of the barracks, she felt the weight of what happened. She knew she should be exhausted, but instead she felt alert, focused. A strange pulse beat deep inside her bones, slow and heavy. Lisa crawled up beside her and asked if she was injured. Arya shook her head, saying she was fine. But Lisa sensed something was different. Arya felt stronger, sharper, as if the battle had reached into her and pulled something forward, something she thought she had buried long ago. She tried to sleep, but every time she closed her eyes she saw flashes of the fight. The drones, the fire, the moment she felt her senses heighten. She remembered how her vision had narrowed to a clear path, how her mind calculated angles and timing without effort. It scared her, and yet a part of her felt ready for more. The next morning, the commanding officer summoned her. When she entered the room, she saw several high-ranking officers waiting. They studied her as if she were a puzzle they needed to solve. One of them asked if she had previous combat experience. Arya answered honestly, no official training beyond basic drills. They exchanged glances. Another officer said witnesses claimed she moved like a trained veteran. Arya remained silent. She did not know how to explain her instincts or the strange energy inside her. The commander finally spoke. He said they were moving her to a more advanced training group. Her skills needed to be tested properly. Arya nodded. She felt nervous but also determined. As she left the office, she heard one officer whisper that humans should not be underestimated. That was the first time she had heard respect in their voices. Arya walked back through the fort, feeling everyone's eyes on her again. But this time there was no laughter, only curiosity and something close to admiration. She kept her pace steady, breath calm, mind focused. She knew the war had only just begun for her. She knew more tests were coming. And deep inside her, that strange pulse grew stronger, as if the war zone had reached out and touched something hidden within her. She was no longer just a fresh recruit. She was something more, something not yet formed, something that the fires of war were beginning to shape. Arya woke before the alarms again, but this time her body felt different. Her muscles felt heavier, stronger, as if the battle had changed something inside her. She sat on the edge of her bunk, breathing slowly, trying to understand the strange sharpness in her senses. She heard footsteps outside the barracks long before anyone else moved. She felt the faint vibration of machines in distant rooms. Everything around her seemed clearer than before. When the alarms finally rang, she was already dressed. Lisa blinked at her with confusion, asking how she always managed to wake before everyone else. Arya smiled softly and said she simply had a good internal clock. She did not mention the pulse inside her bones that kept her alert through the night. As she stepped outside, she noticed soldiers looking at her with mixed expressions. Some nodded, others whispered, and a few watched her with respect she had never expected. The news of her actions had spread quickly. The fort was filled with rumors about the human recruit who defeated enemy drones with uncanny skill. Arya headed toward the advanced training center as ordered. The building was larger and more fortified, with heavy metal doors and guards standing watch. When she entered, she saw a group of elite soldiers from different species already waiting. They were taller, stronger, and carried themselves with confidence earned through years of war. A Tarian instructor approached her, his gray skin marked with scars. He looked her up and down, not impressed at first. Then he checked the datapad in his claws and narrowed his eyes. "So you're the human recruit," he said. "The one who survived the drone attack." Arya nodded calmly. He handed her a heavier weapon than she had ever used. "Show me what you can do." Training began immediately. They started with advanced weapon drills. Most recruits struggled with the recoil, but Arya adapted quickly. She adjusted her grip after the first shot, corrected her aim, and fired with smooth precision. The instructor watched her quietly, his expression unreadable. Next came endurance tests. They ran through rough terrain filled with obstacles. Alien recruits moved fast, leaping over high barriers and sliding under metal beams with natural ease. Arya followed behind at first, but soon her pace increased. She dodged obstacles with surprising agility. Her feet hit the ground lightly, her lungs barely burning. By the end of the course, she had passed 2 of the alien recruits and finished near the front. Some trainees stared at her, surprised. Others seemed annoyed. Arya did not celebrate or show pride. She simply caught her breath and prepared for the next drill. The third test was hand-to-hand combat. Arya felt nervous for the first time. She had trained in basic self-defense but never fought these larger species in close range. She stepped into the ring with a Varian fighter, whose blue skin shimmered under the lights and whose size doubled hers. He smirked and said, gently, that he would try not to hurt her. Arya nodded, trying not to feel small. The moment the signal sounded, the Varian lunged forward. Arya dodged instinctively. Her heart raced, but her mind stayed sharp. The Varian struck again, but Arya saw the movement before it happened, as if her senses predicted the attack. She ducked and swept his leg. He stumbled, shocked that she had knocked him off balance. He attacked again, this time more serious. Arya blocked his arm, twisted, and landed a clean strike to his side. The Varian stepped back, panting lightly. "What are you?" he muttered, confused. Arya did not answer because she did not know. The strange pulse in her bones grew stronger during the fight, guiding her movements. It felt like an old instinct waking, something wild and buried deep. The instructor ended the match before it escalated. He scribbled notes on his pad, clearly impressed but trying not to show it. After several more drills, the trainees were given a short break. Arya sat alone on a crate, drinking water and wiping sweat from her forehead. She felt the stares again, but they were different now. Less mocking, more curious, a tall Rovak approached her. He was the same reptilian fighter who had mocked her earlier in the dining hall. He crouched beside her with a thoughtful look. "You fought well," he admitted grudgingly. "Better than I expected." Arya nodded politely. "Thank you." The Rovak tilted his head, studying her. "Humans are strange. You look weak, yet you fight like someone born in battle." Arya looked away, unsure how to respond. She did not feel strong. She felt different, yes, but the weight of the change scared her. Something old inside her was stirring every time she pushed herself. Before they could speak more, alarms suddenly blared. "Not training alarms, real ones?" The color of the lights shifted to deep red. Soldiers began rushing out, grabbing their gear. The instructor shouted for everyone to move. "Enemy forces approaching! Front gate compromised." Arya grabbed her weapon without hesitation. She followed the squad toward the outer defense walls, her heart pounding but her mind cool. When they reached the wall, the sight ahead sent chills through the entire squad. A swarm of enemy mech units advanced across the barren field. The machines were larger and stronger than the drones. Their footsteps shook the ground. Arya positioned herself behind cover with the others. Plasma bolts flew overhead. The air filled with smoke, fire, and the deafening roar of energy cannons. The Rovak shouted for Arya to stay low. She nodded, but her eyes were already scanning the battlefield. She saw patterns again, movements, timing, weak points. It all felt unnaturally clear. A mech unit charged toward their position. Its heavy steps crushed metal crates. The soldiers fired, but the mech's armor absorbed most of the damage. When it lifted its arm to fire, Arya saw a tiny gap in the armor near the joint. Without thinking, she dashed out of cover. The squad screamed at her to stop, but she continued. She slid under the mech's arm, aimed upward, and fired a precise shot. The blast hit the weak point. The mech staggered, sparks flying from the broken joint. Arya rolled to the side as the mech crashed down. She got back to her feet just in time to dodge another blast. The other soldiers stared, speechless. Even the elite fighters looked shocked. The battle grew more intense. More mech units approached. Arya fought with everything she had. Her movements felt guided by something deeper than training. Every dodge, every shot, every decision came from instinct. The pulse in her bones beat like a second heartbeat. She saw a group of soldiers trapped near a damaged bunker. A mech aimed at them. Arya sprinted across open ground, ignoring the danger. She climbed onto a fallen metal plate, used it as a launch point, and leaped onto the mech's back. The machine shook violently, trying to throw her off. Arya held on, gripping its metal frame. She smashed her rifle into a panel and fired directly into the circuitry. The mech spasmed and fell. The trapped soldiers escaped, staring at her with disbelief. The Rovak ran up to her, panting. "How did you do that?" he demanded. No human should be able to fight like this. Arya could not answer. She was breathing hard, sweat dripping, but her eyes felt sharper. Everything around her felt louder, clearer. She felt the war shaping her with every moment. Hours later, when the battle was finally over, the ground was littered with broken machines. Medics treated the wounded while officers assessed the damage. Arya stood quietly, feeling her heartbeat slow. The pulse inside her bones had become steady. Almost comforting. The Tarion instructor approached her with a serious expression. "You are being moved to a new squad," he said. "A special operations team. You will train with them starting tomorrow." Arya blinked, surprised. "But I'm still a recruit." "Not anymore," he replied simply. As Arya walked back to the barracks, exhausted and covered in dirt, she noticed something. The soldiers who once ignored her now stepped aside to let her pass. Some nodded respectfully. Others looked at her with awe or fear. She felt the war changing her. The battlefield had awakened something hidden within her, something growing stronger each day. She wondered what she would become if this continued. That night she lay in her bunk, unable to sleep. The fort was quiet, but the pulse in her bones still echoed like a distant drum. She was no longer just a recruit. She was something being forged by war. Arya woke before dawn again, long before the rest of the barracks stirred. Her body felt heavier but stronger, as if each battle carved something new into her muscles. She sat upright, listening to the distant hum of generators, the quiet breaths of sleeping soldiers, and the faint vibrations in the floor. Her senses had grown sharper than she understood. Even the smallest sounds carried meaning. She could tell who was approaching the barracks door by the weight of their steps. When the fort's morning alarm finally rang, she was already dressed and ready. Lisa blinked at her with tired eyes, asking how she kept waking up early. Arya only smiled and said she did not know. It was partly true. She did not understand the strange energy inside her either. She just knew she had changed. The moment she stepped outside, the cold wind hit her face. She saw the bruised sky still recovering from yesterday's battle. Smoke trails from destroyed mechs still floated above the outer field. Soldiers were already repairing damaged walls. Their movements slow and exhausted. Arya headed toward the Special Operations Wing, where she had been ordered to report. The building looked different from the others. It was quieter, heavier, as if every wall carried secrets. When she entered, she saw 5 soldiers standing in formation. They were taller, stronger, and far more experienced than the trainees she trained with earlier. Their armor was darker, marked with symbols that showed the battles they survived. A commander with silver skin and sharp eyes stepped forward. She studied Arya for a long moment before speaking. "You are the human recruit," the commander said. The one whose file had nothing special, yet whose performance has been anything but ordinary. Arya stood straight and nodded. I am Commander Selen, the woman said. Welcome to Special Unit 11. You will train with us now. If you keep up, you stay. If you fall behind, you return to general ranks. Understood? Yes, Commander, Arya replied. The team regarded her with mixed expressions. A large Rovak soldier snorted, clearly doubtful of her abilities. A small but fast-moving Credo warrior studied her with curiosity. A quiet Tarian merely watched with calm eyes. Training began immediately. Commander Selen led them to an open field filled with broken terrain, sharp rocks, collapsed structures, and moving obstacles. It looked like a battlefield frozen in time. Survival test, Selen said. No weapons. Reach the extraction point. Work together or fail. The moment the signal sounded, the ground shifted. Walls moved. Hidden turrets activated. The terrain became alive with dangers. The team moved with practiced ease. Arya followed closely, observing every motion. The Rovak ordered everyone to stick to cover. The Tarian gave quiet warnings about incoming threats. The Credo darted ahead to scout. Arya stayed at the back at first, trying to understand their rhythm. Then the first turret shot fired. A beam of red energy sliced across the ground. The team dove aside. Arya moved without thinking, rolling behind debris. The Tarian shouted instructions. The Rovak charged forward to draw fire. The Creto climbed a wall with lightning speed to disable a switch. Arya noticed something. Every time the turret charged, it made a faint clicking sound. The others did not seem to hear it. But she could, she shouted, it fires after 3 clicks. The team reacted immediately. They timed their movements perfectly around the pattern Arya identified. Within minutes, the turrets were disabled. Commander Selen watched from afar. Her expression unreadable, the team pressed forward. Moving obstacles crashed, forcing them to dodge quickly. Arya leaped over a collapsing wall, feeling her muscles react faster than expected. She saw the Credo slip on debris and fall. Before she could think, Arya grabbed the creature's arm and pulled her to safety. The Credo stared. How did you move so fast? Arya only shook her head. Instinct. More traps activated. The ground beneath Arya cracked, revealing a pit. She jumped just in time, but the Rovak nearly fell. Arya grabbed his armor and dragged him back with surprising strength. He looked at her with wide eyes. Humans are not supposed to be this strong, he muttered. Arya had no answer. The team continued until they finally reached the extraction point. Most were panting. Arya was breathing hard too, but she did not feel as exhausted as she should. She felt the pulse inside her again, steady and deep. Commander Selen walked toward them. Good, she said. Better than expected. And you, she pointed at Arya, you are full of surprises. Arya stood silent, unsure if it was praise or warning. Later, back inside the training center, the team gathered for a rest. The Rovak approached her reluctantly. You saved me, he said. Arya nodded. We are a team. He hesitated before nodding back. You fight well? Better than I believed. The Credo hopped beside Arya, clicking happily. Your senses are sharp. You saw things faster than any of us. How? Arya stared at the ground, uncomfortable. I don't know. The Tarian, quiet until now, finally spoke. You are changing, he said calmly. Your body reacts like it remembers a different kind of battlefield. His words made Arya's heart tighten. She wondered if he was right. She wondered what she was becoming. The day continued with more training, weapon drills, team strategies, combat simulations. Arya passed every challenge, sometimes barely, sometimes with shocking ease. Her instincts guided her, her vision sharpened during high stress, and her movements matched soldiers far more experienced than she did. By the time evening arrived, Arya's muscles ached. Sweat dripped down her neck. But she felt alive. Then the fort alarm blared. Not practice. Again. Commander Selen sprinted out of the building with her team following. Arya ran with them, her heartbeat already quickening. When they reached the outer defense line, they saw the sky filled with enemy aircraft. Dozens of ships descended toward the fort. The ground rumbled. Soldiers scrambled to their stations. The air filled with panic and urgency. Selen shouted, "Unit 11, with me! We hold the west gate." Arya followed without hesitation. The west gate was already under fire. Explosions shook the walls. Enemy ground units charged forward, covered in heavy armor. Energy blasts lit the air with crackling light. Arya took position behind a damaged barricade. The Rovak fired heavy rounds. The Credo darted between cover points. The Tarian provided calm, steady shots. Arya scanned the battlefield. She saw patterns again. The enemy soldiers moved in predictable waves. Their formation had weaknesses. Their armor had small gaps just under the shoulder plates. Their weapons overheated after extended fire. She shouted instructions to the team. At first they hesitated, unsure if they should trust her. Then they followed, and it worked. They struck with precision. The enemy forces fell back, struggling to reorganize. Arya fired again and again, each shot guided by instinct. She ducked and dashed through blasts that should have hit her. She felt the battlefield like it was part of her. Then something changed. During a brief pause in firing, Arya felt a wave of heat run through her body. Her vision blurred for a second, then sharpened dramatically. She could see farther, clearer. She could hear distant metal shifting. She sensed danger before it arrived. A shadow fell over her. A massive enemy mech dropped from a ship above, landing so hard the ground shook. Its eyes glowed red. Its cannon aimed directly at her. Arya moved before her brain fully processed it. She leaped aside just as the cannon fired, sending a blast that tore through the barricade. Selen shouted her name. But Arya was already running. She dashed toward the mech, weaving through fire. She felt faster than she had ever been. Each movement felt controlled by something deeper, something primal. She slid under the mech's leg, fired at its joint, then rolled away just in time. Sparks flew. The mech staggered. The Rovak shouted, "Arya, fall back." But she did not. She climbed onto the mech, using shattered armor pieces as grips. The machine shook violently, trying to throw her off. Arya held on, her hands gripping metal with unnatural strength. She reached a panel on the mech's back and tore it open. Her fingers moved quickly, ripping wires. Firing into circuits, the mech collapsed. Arya jumped off. Just as it fell, her team stared at her in shock. Selen approached slowly. "What are you?" she whispered. Arya stood trembling, unable to answer. The pulse inside her had grown louder, clearer, almost like a voice calling from deep within her bones. As the battle continued around them, Arya realized something. The war was shaping her, changing her, forging her into something new, something she was not sure she could control. The sky above the war zone was dark, even though it was daytime. Smoke moved across the air like slow shadows, and the ground shook every few minutes when distant weapons fired. In this place, every soldier learned to walk with quiet steps and alert eyes. Ilara had already learned that lesson well. She had learned many lessons the hard way. Now she walked forward with her rifle steady in her hands, her breath slow, and her heart strong. She was no longer the fresh recruit who had once stepped nervously onto the battlefield. She was something else now, someone the war had shaped into a fighter. She moved with Captain Rian and the rest of the squad through the broken buildings of Sector Delta. Their mission was simple but dangerous. They had to reach a collapsed tower deep in enemy territory. The tower held a data core containing orders for enemy reinforcements. If the enemy reached it first, they would know the weaknesses of the human defenses. Ilara understood this well. Rian had explained it clearly before they left the base. She remembered his voice, calm and serious, saying that failure was not an option. She carried those words inside her like a promise. As the squad moved, the sound of metal shifting echoed from the ruins around them. Everyone stopped instantly. They raised their weapons. Ilara followed their lead without hesitation. The air was thick with silence. A few seconds later, a damaged drone fell from a broken upper floor of a nearby building. When it hit the ground, sparks flew out of its body, and then it went still. Rian lowered his weapon a little. "Stay sharp. That means others might be nearby," he said. They continued moving. Ilara stayed at the center of the formation, scanning every direction. She listened to the crunch of debris under their boots and the distant hum of enemy machines. She had grown used to these sounds. She had grown used to the fear as well. It sat in her chest like a cold stone, but she no longer let it control her. She had learned to move even when she was afraid. When they reached the remains of an old road, the squad took cover behind overturned vehicles and broken walls. They were close to the tower now. Ilara looked out at the landscape. The tower used to be tall and bright, but now it was nothing more than a twisted frame leaning in one direction. The data core would be buried under the fallen metal beams. Rian pointed toward the tower. We will split into 2 teams. Team 1 will go inside and retrieve the core. Team 2 covers from here and watches all entry points. Once we secure the core, we fall back to extraction. No delays. Ilara was placed in Team 1 with Rian. Malik and Jace joined them. Team 2 stayed behind to provide support from a higher position. The moment they stepped forward, Ilara felt her pulse rise. She steadied her breathing. She knew her role. She knew what she had to do. When they reached the base of the tower, the broken metal structure rose above them like a giant skeleton. Ilara followed Rian inside through a narrow gap. Inside, the air smelled of burning wires and old dust. Malik turned on a handheld light and swept the beam across the fallen beams. Searching for the path? The core should be under that side, Malik said. Pointing at a tangle of collapsed floors. Jaca moved to help him clear the smaller debris. Ilara kept watch. Rian stood beside her. Every noise made her muscles tighten. Every shadow made her finger rest a little closer to the trigger. After a few minutes, Malik whispered, I see it. It's still intact. Ilara turned her head. Malik carefully pulled out a metal case covered in dust. It had scratches on it, but the lock light still blinked green. That meant the core inside was still protected. Rian nodded. Good, pack it. We are leaving immediately. Before they could move, the sound of footsteps echoed from deeper in the tower. Ilara froze. Then she saw movement in the darkness. Enemy scouts. 2 of them. They came forward quickly. Rian raised his weapon. Ilara did the same. Malik ducked behind a beam with the core. Jace positioned himself beside a fallen column. The scouts fired first. Blue energy shots flew past Ilara, slamming into debris and sending sparks into the air. Ilara fired back. Her shot hit the first scout in the shoulder. He fell instantly. The second scout tried to move around the beam for cover, but Rian hit him before he could reposition. The noise of the fight echoed through the broken structure. Ilara stared into the darkness, waiting for more to appear. Her chest rose and fell quickly, and she kept her weapon raised. Rian spoke low. We need to move. The enemy definitely heard that. They left the tower quickly, moving from cover to cover. When they reached the road again, Team 2 contacted them. Multiple hostiles are approaching from the east, their lookout warned through the radio. You need to move fast. The squad regrouped and started their retreat. Ilara ran beside Malik, who carried the data core. Jace and Rian stayed behind momentarily to cover their movement. Ilara heard the enemy weapons firing from behind them. Energy beams cut through the air, hitting the ground and broken walls around them. Ilara felt the fear rising, but she forced herself to stay focused. She fired back while moving, keeping the enemy at a distance. The squad progressed through the ruins, but their path was blocked by a collapsed building. They had to take a longer route. Ilara followed Rian's signal and moved quickly. The enemy was getting closer. Their metal footsteps echoed through the damaged streets. Ilara could hear their robotic voices calling out orders. She glanced at Rian. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. Ilara, take Malik and Jace through that narrow alley. I will cover you from here. Move fast, he commanded. Ilara nodded and pulled Malik forward. Jace followed behind them. The alley was dark and filled with debris, but it led toward a safer area. Ilara covered Malik as he ran with the core. Suddenly, a blast hit the wall beside her, throwing dust into the air. Ilara ducked and fired at the enemy shadows behind them. The sound of her rifle echoed loudly. She could feel her hands trembling, But she did not stop. When they reached the end of the alley, they found themselves at the edge of a crater. Moloch looked around nervously. "We need another path," he said. Jace pointed toward a broken walkway across the crater. "We can cross there." Ilara looked at the walkway. It was narrow and damaged, but it could hold their weight if they moved carefully. They crossed one by one. Moloch went first with the core. Jace followed. Ilara waited until they were halfway before she moved onto the walkway. The metal creaked under her boots, but she kept going. When they reached the other side, they heard Rian on the radio. "I'm coming to you. Hold your position and prepare to move to extraction point Bravo." Ilara felt relief. Rian always had a way of bringing calm, even in chaos. When he joined them a minute later, he was slightly out of breath but unharmed. "Everyone ready?" he asked. They nodded. The squad continued moving. They could see the extraction point ahead, an old landing platform where their transport ship would arrive soon, but the enemy was not far behind. Ilara could hear their footsteps again. "We will make it," Ilara whispered to herself. They reached the platform and took cover behind large metal crates. Moloch placed the core behind him and raised his weapon to help defend the position. Jace prepared extra power cells for their rifles. Ilara knelt with her weapon ready. The enemy appeared moments later. A wave of soldiers charged toward them. Ilara fired shot after shot. The sound of weapons filled the air. Sparks and dust flew across the platform. Rian shouted commands, guiding them through the defense. The enemy pushed forward, but the squad held their ground. Ilara hit several enemies. Jace took down those trying to flank them. Moloch protected the core. Finally, the sound of engines filled the sky. Their transport ship arrived, flying low. "Fall back, get on the ship," Rian shouted. Ilara helped Moloch carry the core as they ran toward the shuttle. They boarded quickly. Jace and Rian were the last ones inside. The moment the ship lifted off, the enemy shots hit its armored hull, but they were safe. The platform grew smaller below them. Elar sat down, breathing hard. Moloch held the core close. Jace leaned back and closed his eyes. Rian looked around at them, making sure everyone was safe. Ilara stared out at the distant horizon. She had survived another mission. She had protected her squad. She had changed even more. The war zone was forging her into something strong, something powerful. And she knew this was only the beginning. The transport ship flew low over the broken landscape, its engines humming softly as it carried the squad back toward the forward base. Inside, the air was heavy with exhaustion and quiet relief. Ilara sat near the window, her helmet resting on her knees. Outside, she could see the endless stretch of ruined cities and dark craters. The war had carved deep scars into this world. She had changed alongside it. Moloch kept the data core carefully secured beside him. Jace leaned back with his eyes half closed but stayed alert. Captain Rian stood near the exit ramp, checking the area through the small windows built into the metal door. Ilara watched him. His calm presence always gave the squad a sense of direction. She had learned much from him: how to fight, how to survive, how to stay focused even when fear tried to take control. She respected him deeply. The ship shook suddenly as something hit its side. Ilara grabbed the seat for balance. Rian steadied himself and spoke into the intercom. "Pilot, report." The pilot's voice came through, tense. "We have incoming fire from an anti-air turret." "I'm changing course. Hold on." The ship swerved sharply. Ilara felt her body pull to one side. Moloch held the core tightly. Jace gripped the seat. Rian raised his voice. "Everyone stay seated. This will be rough." More shots erupted from the ground. Ilara heard the sharp impact on the ship's outer plating. The engines roared louder as the pilot pushed the ship forward. After a tense minute, the firing stopped. The ship steadied. "Turret avoided," the pilot announced. "We're heading straight to base." 4 minutes out, Ilara exhaled slowly. Her heart still pounded, but she felt the fear fading. She was used to this now. The war had shaped her into someone who could stay calm when danger struck. When they reached the base, soldiers rushed toward the landing zone to help them disembark. The squad stepped off the ship, and the cold air hit their faces. Ilara felt tired but steady. They had completed their mission. The data core was safe. General Corvan stood near the edge of the platform, waiting for them. His stern face softened slightly when he saw Rian. "Captain, report," he said. Rian handed him the core. "Sector Delta Tower secured. Enemy scouts engaged. Core intact." Corvan nodded. "Good work. This information will help us block their reinforcement routes. You all did well. Get some rest." Debrief in 1 hour. The squad walked toward the barracks. Ilara felt the weight of exhaustion settling into her body. Her legs ached. Her arms felt heavy. But inside, there was a quiet strength. They reached their room. Moloch collapsed onto his bunk with a groan. "I just want to sleep for 10 days, he muttered. Jace laughed softly. "Make it 20. Ilara sat down on her bunk and removed her boots. She stretched her sore muscles, feeling the day's tension slowly release. Then Rian stepped inside. His voice was calm, but there was something serious in his eyes. "Ilara, I need you to come with me for a moment." She stood up immediately. Moloch and Jace looked at her curiously but said nothing. Ilara followed Rian down the hallway to a quiet briefing room. When the door closed behind them, Rian placed a datapad on the table. "There's something you need to know," he said. Ilara frowned slightly. "Is it about the mission?" Rian shook his head. "No, it's about you." She felt her chest tighten. "Me?" Rian tapped the datapad and a hologram appeared. It showed a medical analysis, glowing softly in the air. It took Ilara only a moment to recognize it, her file. "This was flagged after your last medical scan," Rian explained. "You weren't supposed to see it until after a full review, but after what you did in the last missions, the command agreed you should know now." Ilara stared at the glowing symbols. Her mind tried to understand them. "What does it mean?" She asked. Rian looked at her with steady eyes. "It means you're different. You're not just a strong recruit. You have something rare inside you. Something that reacts to extreme stress. It enhances your strength, speed, focus, everything. The doctors call it a latent combat trait, something seen in less than 1% of soldiers." Ilara's breath caught. "So, the way I changed during missions, it wasn't just training?" "Training helped," Rian said softly. "But the truth is, the trait within you is growing stronger. The war is waking it up." Ilara felt both shock and confusion. She thought about the missions, the times she had reacted faster than she believed possible, the moments when her body moved before she consciously acted. She always believed it was adrenaline or instinct. But now she understood it was more. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" she asked quietly. Rian sighed. "Protocols. They wanted to observe you first. But now, Command is placing you on a new mission. A critical one, and they want you to lead a small unit." Ilara blinked in surprise. "Me? Lead?" "Yes," Rian said. "You're ready. You've proven yourself. And your trait will continue to grow in the field." Ilara felt a mix of pride and fear. She had never imagined leading a unit. She was once a fresh recruit who barely understood the battlefield. Now she was being asked to command. Rian placed a hand on her shoulder. "I believe in you. The squad believes in you. And most importantly, you've shown that you believe in yourself." Ilara lowered her head for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Then she lifted her eyes again. "What is the mission?" she asked. Rian tapped the datapad. A map appeared in the hologram. It showed the enemy's stronghold deep within the wastelands. "They are building a massive weapon." His voice grew serious. "If they finish it, the war will turn in their favor. Your job is to lead a small team inside, destroy their power core, and cripple the project before it becomes operational." Ilara felt a deep resolve growing inside her. "When do we leave?" "Tomorrow at dawn," Rian said. Ilara nodded slowly. "I'll be ready." The rest of the day passed in preparation. Ilara gathered equipment and studied the mission details. Moloch and Jace immediately volunteered to join her. They trusted her completely. She felt their support like a warm shield. During the night, sleep came slowly. Her mind kept replaying the words she had heard: latent combat trait, leadership role, dangerous mission. She felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her. But she also felt something else: strength, determination. At dawn, she stood on the landing platform with her team. The air was cold, and the rising sun cast long shadows across the ground. Rian approached her, holding a small metal badge. "This is the symbol of unit leaders," he said, handing it to her. "You've earned it." Ilara held the badge in her hand. It was simple, but heavy with meaning. "Thank you," she said. Rian gave her a nod. "Bring them home. And bring yourself home." Ilara placed the badge on her armor and took a deep breath. She turned to her team. "Let's move," she said. They boarded the transport ship together. The engines began to hum. The wind picked up. The sky turned brighter as the ship lifted off into the horizon. Ilara stood tall, her eyes steady and her heart strong. She was no longer just a recruit. She was a leader. The war zone had forged her into something powerful, something unbreakable, and her story was only beginning.